Hi everyone, welcome to The Grind. We are done with the series on Jonah.
Yeah.
We have gone through the series Overthrown. We've gone through the book of Jonah. We've seen, wow, what a character Jonah he is. Kind of petty, kind of,
We're so done with him.
yeah, we're so
Like we're
done.
done with this series. Anyway, okay, sorry.
But even though he is, he's made some like errors, we still learn a lot from his life. And I think there's a lot of timely and timeless truth that we can get from the book of Jonah. And so we're going to be talking about the sin of Jonah today. Great topic. But first off, what are some of your pet peeves? Why is everyone staring at me?
Because pet peeves.
Oh, pet has many peeves, but anyways.
Pet of many peeves.
Yeah, pet of many peeves.
For me, I'm someone who likes movies. I especially love music, right?
Uh-huh.
And I really, what's one big pet peeve is when I'm trying to like enjoy what's in front of me, and people start clapping and cheering. Especially like orchestra. You're one of them who claps.
I was like, I do clap.
Especially when it's like an orchestra, I want to listen. I want to like get everything, like enjoy every small aspect of the piece.
It's okay.
So what about when they finish the piece?
And when people clap and cheer in the middle, and I'm like, what are you doing?
Okay, not in the middle.
People do it in movies as well. Apparently, it's in cinema culture. People like to cheer.
Oh, yeah, I do it.
I am now contemplating my friendship with Petrina. Anyways, moving on.
Yeah, I mean, when everyone comes back from the dead in Infinity War, it definitely is a.
Not to be that guy, but Endgame.
I mean, whatever, Endgame. You know what I'm saying? That time, that moment when everyone comes back, just your heads can actually be like.
But then when everyone does it together, it's fun. No.
I gotta note to self, I contemplate my friendship with them. Yeah.
Like there's so many like especially there's like these one-time performances, There's like it's just one person playing in front of a whole audience.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. It's just one person playing.
Okay, fine. I mean that's fine.
Yeah.
Like, I get that.
Yeah.
Movies. Okay.
No, movies too for me.
Anyways,
Zoe.
For me, it has to do with eating. So if you munch too loud, like if you chew inside your mouth too loud, or if you chew out loud, like you open your mouth while chewing, that's a pet peeve. Also, when you're eating noodles, I told Pet before, when you're eating noodles, you have chopsticks, right? You're
talking about that one.
Like a large piece of like noodle, like a lot of noodles together, and then you just chop it off.
I like how the French person is triggered by noodles, not the
it's
Asians.
like these two have like very specific pet peeves.
It's an ick, yeah.
Yeah.
And then the soup is just full of short noodles that you can't get anymore.
With your
It
spoon.
just doesn't look nice.
With your spoon.
Then why don't you just finish the whole noodle piece? But yeah,
With your spoon and the soup.
that's my.
Yeah. I feel like, again, very specific pet peeves that these two have. But going along the lines of like what you're saying about people clapping in the middle, I realized that I was at a conference, right? And then like, when you're worshiping Jesus and everything, and then there's like that silence. And you have to have that one person that yells, Jesus! And everyone's like, of course you're going to clap at the name of Jesus, right? You're not going to be saying silence. So I'm like, but the moment, it's just like this holy moment that you want to just worship. It's like people's like, it's awkward silence. And then they're like, Jesus! And then it's like,
Really?
You know what's funny?
What?
Is that I think I had that person. I don't know. It's kind of like
Sometimes
a
me too.
move by the spirit kind of thing,
Yeah, but then there's, I get once or twice, but then it's felt like consistently at every moment when there's silence, this person is just yelling Jesus for the heck of it, just to get the crowd going. I'm like, it's okay. It's okay. I know we're meant to call upon the name of Jesus. Can you please read the room? So that could be a pet peeve. I have plenty of pet peeves, but yeah. So
Do share sometime.
Pets, peeves.
Yeah. Anyways, but that was one of them.
That
Okay.
joke's never gonna die down.
It's gonna, yeah. Okay, so that's, pet peeves are kind of just like, yeah, all right, something that really irritates you, but let's get down to what really angers us, right? Is there something that truly makes you angry?
Sometimes it's false hope.
Also makes you angry?
Yeah.
Tell me more.
So
I'm kind of curious.
sometimes when people say that they're gonna do something, and then so I expect them to do it sometime later, and I'm like, okay, I'm a forgiving person until they actually don't do it.
So flaky people makes you angry.
Yes. Yeah, flaky people too. When you cancel like last minute, when I've been planning for that for a long time. Yeah.
Okay, so flaky and rude people makes you angry.
Yeah.
In a
So
nutshell.
just bad manners,
Bad manners.
Yeah.
ill behaviors.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's everyone.
What makes me angry would be the whole thing. I think I mentioned this before as well on the grind is human trafficking. Like people being tricked into giving up their lives for something that they thought was the dream, but turns out to be like a trap. And then they're stuck, doing something that they never thought out to do. So I think it's just being lied to and like forced to do something that you're not meant to do. Child labor, that kind of stuff, human trafficking. I think that just makes my blood boil. It's just taking people into forced captivity, I guess. So that makes me angry. Okay, let's talk about this. Has there been a time when you became angry with God, right? Because he didn't respond in the way that you wanted. So we talked about like kind of like jokes, things that irritate us and things that really make us angry. But how about the time that you're angry at one singular being, which is God, because he didn't respond in the way that you wanted?
I'm not sure if I mentioned this on the grind before, but I have this story, and I really like this story because it was a really humbling story, the humbling situation that God really helped me grow. But I wasn't necessarily angry at God, but I was definitely not in agreement with how he responded. Just to make it clear, I was in the wrong. Just to briefly do it, I was long day at work. I was walking to the bus terminal behind our office, and I was like 3 feet away from this bus, my bus. The doors were open. The bus driver literally looks to the right, away from me, closes the door.
Yeah.
He's driving left. He's looking right. Why are you looking right if you're driving left? Okay, so like I really feel he was intentionally like not making eye contact. And I even knocked on the door, still drove off. And I had a long day. I got really angry, right? And it's out of my control. What am I gonna do? Run after the bus? So I was like, God, you take vengeance. Vengeance is mine, says the Lord. I'm not gonna do anything.
The next hour, there's a car crash. Just kidding.
Oh,
My
was there?
gosh, no.
right?
Just kidding. Just messing.
But I was really angry, and I think that the part where I just disagreed with how I did not like how God responded was God said, forgive him. And I was like, no. But then yes, after 10 minutes of going back and forth, I eventually did. And I was humbled. But yes, that was when I was really upset and what I wanted did not align with what God wanted.
How about you, Zoe?
Not really angry, but mostly sad. Like sometimes that happens when I pray for healing and I don't see it happen, even like gradually. Even like my cold, I prayed for it yesterday. I was like, I'm still like super sick today.
I think along the lines of what you said, healing, I think, and it also feels wrong to say I get angry at God. I think the word for me would be upset, upset at God. And I think, definitely healing, when you're praying for healing to happen, but it doesn't happen, especially in the life of a close one. And then also thinking like, but this person like served you, stuff like that. And it's like, come on, God, like why of all people, this person has to go through this fate who's so faithful to you. I think that's the time when I was like super angry, or maybe just angry the whole scenario. Maybe I was angry the whole scenario, not angry with God, but angry scenario, upset at God. That where are you? Where's your hand? Why does this have to happen?
Yeah.
So looking at Jonah, he was angry, and let me and it was, you can see this in like Jonah 4, where when Nineveh like turned to the Lord, everyone's like, yes, we confess, we and like we repented, and God relented from the disaster he was about to be like, boom, this is gonna happen. And Jonah 4 verse 1, it says, but it displeased Jonah exceedingly, and he was angry. And verse 2, and he prayed to the Lord and said, oh Lord, is not this what I said when I was yet in my country? That's why I made haste to flee to Tarshish. For I knew that you are a gracious God and merciful, slow to anger and abounding in steadfast love and relenting from disaster. Therefore now, O Lord, please take my life from me, for it is better for me to die than to live. And then God's like, do you do well to be angry? So, like, do you think Jonah was serious when he asked God to take his life away?
I personally think he wasn't. I think he was being a drama queen.
Oh yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Really, when I was reading that verse, what really visualizes in my head is just a little child throwing a tantrum on the floor. I feel that's kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
And I think the more I look into it, I think there's a pent up anger, and maybe he knows in his head, he has the head knowledge that lashing out at God is not the right thing.
Yeah.
So I think it's all that pent up anger that he just needs to release it. So yeah, I think also drama queen.
I also think he wasn't guilty enough to really want to die, like actually mean it, I think.
Oh. Yeah. I think he was just like frustrated with it. You know, sometimes like, I mean, I know I've been frustrated too, like, Lord, take my life now, you know, or Jesus, like, you know, just come, Lord Jesus. And, like, whenever I say that, it's just because I don't want to deal with the situation right now, so I don't really mean it. It's just more like, like a form of expression. But yeah, I think he was being a little bit of a drama queen. I mean, also, it seems as though he had no reason to be upset. I mean, Nineveh was saved, the whole nation was saved. So I was like, why is he being upset that a nation was saved? Right? Unless someone in Nineveh really crossed him, like stole his money, whatever it is, and he's like, you know, cursed all the Ninevites for, you know, messing me up. I don't know.
He just really didn't like them.
Maybe someone did him dirty
Yeah.
back in the day. And he held on to it. He needs some inner healing. There's some healing from trauma, PTSD, all the above. I don't know. So, Anyways, so he basically went out of the city, the east of the city, and seems as though whenever the dude is unhappy, he's always on the run, which also is kind of relatable because when I'm unhappy, I'm also on the run too, just from my reality. So, east of the city kind of represents like distance and separation. So he basically chose to separate himself from the people and what God has called him to. So by relocating to the east of the city, like, what do you think Jonah was really hoping for?
I think he was hoping to witness destruction, God's judgment on them, because afterwards it says like God showed him the plant and the worm thing. And so I feel like God had to show him because of this attitude that he wanted to see God's judgment.
I feel like, as you say, isolation. What I kind of like see is like the typical, you know, that one friend that whenever they get upset, they just like shut down. They're like, hey, are you alright? Yeah, I'm fine. Right? They isolate themselves.
So, they're not fine.
That's the modern version of what Jonah did. I feel he just put himself aside, and I think what also was just Jonah's issue was that. You know, I think in his head it finally clicked that he had to obey God, but I bet his heart was not in agreement with that. His head knew he had to obey God, but then the heart just still yearns to see Ninevite get destroyed. And I think because of that, you know, misalignment, that's why he wasn't able to reap the rewards that God wanted to give him. That's why he could not celebrate that a whole nation got revived. Yeah, he couldn't celebrate. That's a great thing, you know, but he couldn't celebrate because I feel heart issue.
I think he was unforgiving when God was
heart posture.
Yeah.
I mean, there's been situations where we see someone go unpunished, right? Like, as in they deserve punishment, but then they get off scot-free. I was like, oh my, like, you know, I mean, what makes you angry is like, God, where's the justice in that? I was recently watching this TV show called Candy, and but basically it's this suburban mom, and she got away with murder in a way because she says it's self-defense, but then she hacked her friend like 41 times, and so, but the thing is, the jury acquitted her and said she was not guilty. So it's almost like, how, like, because this woman like kind of wrecked people's lives. She had affairs and everything, and then when this woman confronted her over the affair of her husband, and then she went onto defense mode, and then so I mean, no one knows like obviously the actual story, but yeah, it's just like, she technically should be punished, right? But then she didn't have to serve any jail time, and apparently now she's in her 70s. We don't know where she's living. I think still in the States, but it's like, oof.
No, thinking about it nowadays, right? When people when people go unpunished, I feel the modern day reaction is this cancel culture. I think that's how it began. They're not satisfied with how
Yeah.
the vengeance has been like followed, like they don't think they got what they deserve.
Yeah.
And I think cancel culture is the people's way of like dealing that punishment. I
Yeah.
feel.
Oh, I mean, let's talk a little bit about cancel culture. What do you guys think about that?
I don't like it. Yeah, like I said, if you think the punishment wasn't just, that means you're basically saying your judgment is better than the actual judge. So I feel in that logic, when you judge people, you're saying your judgment is better than God's judgment. So yeah, and also I saw this reel. I've mentioned this ago in another grind as well, that cancel culture is the opposite of God. That cancel culture is you're bad, you should be put to the ground, right? Meanwhile, God's like, you're bad, but I'm gonna raise you to somewhere better. Yeah, I like that analogy.
Yeah. On top of judgment, I think it's a lot of hate. It's just spreading a lot of hate, because as a Gen Z, like, things spread really quickly, and once you say like, oh, this person should be cancelled, everyone is spreading it.
Yeah, because there's no reason. It's just like, oh, this person said it, so therefore we cancel.
Yeah.
When you disagree with someone and you have no backup, oh, I've got to cancel that person, and then it just becomes a thing.
Yeah.
So it's just an easy way out.
Yeah. But also, as part of Gen Z, I think we're
Yes, Gen
more.
Z girl, yes.
I think we're more and more hungry for justice. Like, really, like, we're trying to fight for 10 billion different things at the same time.
That is true. I read a study somewhere where Gen Z like are more opinionated about social justice issues now, as opposed to like the millennials.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess cancel culture is something to think about. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, God is a God of justice, and it is His hand. Who are we to control His hand? So we just have to trust in that. Yeah, I mean, I can imagine Jonah be waiting for them to mess up again, because again, I'm pretty sure someone in Nineveh must have really, really done him dirty, which is why he's just so bitter. Why else would someone be so bitter over a nation?
Yeah.
Unless he's just really lazy. He's like retired prophet. He's like, you're going to save them anyways. What's the point of me doing this?
Yeah.
I don't know. He's got all these things, and definitely he has he's like definitely ups and downs. All right. So yeah, he was sulking for sure. Went to see sulked, and then so we see that he made a booth for himself, and who's seen what will become of the city. And then as you mentioned, the Lord had a plan to protect him, and Jonah was glad. But then the next day it just was gone. It just was gone. And then Jonah was angry for the plant. It's like, no, why is this plant gone? I mean, the dude is like having a real episode right here and of just sulking away. So then God says to him, like, you pity the plan for which you did not labor, nor did you make it grow, which came into being in the night and perished in the night. And should not I pity Nineveh, that great city in which there are more than 120,000 persons who do not know their right hand from their left, and also much cattle. And that's how Jonah ends. No high, no low. This is how it ends. So again, let's just take a look at Jonah first. Jonah has pity on a plant, but he's like super indifferent to the spiritual needs of Nineveh, right? He's like, oh, poor plant. As opposed to like someone, about to go down for eternal condemnation for their soul, whatever it is. Have you ever found yourselves more moved by trivial things, but untouched by the needs of lost people?
I think, yeah. Like, was it just last week or last week? Or last week? Anyways, there's a previous grind. We talked about, us having bias or like prejudice towards other, groups of people. And I kind of admitted there that I did. I think there's there are some things, some trivial things that, we are passionate about, right? And that's why we get moved by it,
Yeah.
Like, I like playing video games, and I see so many people make huge fuss just from a small change that they didn't like. And meanwhile, I'm like, hello, there's so much bigger problems in the world that should get more attention than this.
Yeah.
And at the same time, on the other end of the spectrum, I feel sometimes we tend to numb ourselves. And I think that's why we don't get moved by the lost people, like I admit, like, how many homeless people have I seen like waiting on the bridge, like begging for money?
Yeah.
I remember as a younger self, I always tried making sure if I had spare change, I'd give it. But like nowadays, I feel I almost numb myself because there's a slight guilt, I feel.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that there are also times where it's like you see the needs, but at least I don't know, like for some of them, I don't know if they're legit or not. Like it could be just a scam, or it could be for reals. Like for example, there was one time, there was some mute people selling these stuffed toys in the street, and then they approached me, and I said no, thank you, because I mean I don't want a stuffed toy. And then they dropped it on the floor, and I thought, oh, let me help you. And then like I picked it up and I gave it back to them, and they didn't want to take it from me. They wanted me to buy it. I was like, no, I mean I'm just. Like, I tried to give it back to them, but they refused to take it from me. But I'm like, I don't want to.
Then just take it and run.
No.
Just
So what I
kidding.
did was like, this is kind of bad, but I put it back on the floor and I walked off because
Oh.
if they're not going to take it from me, there's nowhere where else, then what am I going to do? I'm not going to.
Yeah.
So I just felt like I was being also manipulated there. And I mean, I also felt bad too. It's like, I mean, what kind of, person puts a thing on the floor for someone who's mute and then
Yeah.
like walks off, right? But the thing is, I also felt like I don't want to buy something too.
Yeah.
So there's that situation that I found myself in. And I mean, I know that I get worked up over like issues that don't matter, like why is Comic Sans being used to replace certain signboards, road
Oh my
signs.
gosh.
Like, get me on a rant on that, and I will continue. That's very trivial. Font
Yeah.
choices. No, it's not trivial. It's actually important. It actually communicates a lot about the
It's
person.
trivial. It's
But in the
trivial.
big
Is it
scheme,
that
in the big
important?
scheme, it is trivial. It is trivial. The salvation of one soul is more important than the font
my God.
you
Yeah.
use. But what I'm saying is that, I know sometimes I can get my priorities like shifted. I maybe in the heat of the moment.
Yeah, we're just passionate about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe too passionate.
So can we be just as passionate about the things of the Lord, about the lost people, right?
Yeah.
So, and then like the fact that Jonah 4 ends on the question like, should I not pity Nineveh? Which the question is like, should God not pity lost people, right? And I don't know. I mean, have you ever faced Christians who only pity like a certain group of people, but then like towards another group of people they like show extreme hate?
I know some like Christian friends who agree with most things, but they're very accepting towards LGBTQ. Like they don't understand why we cannot like the sin. They don't understand why it's like kind of
Yeah.
like a sin.
Yeah.
And so they would pay more attention to other things, but when it comes to that, it would be like a sensitive thing for
Oh.
them. Yeah.
For me, I think in my case, one group I tend to, it's almost subconscious that I show, whether I show or hold back to pity. Like for example, when I was on missions, right? I had so much more favor for the Lebanese people, those people who had nothing,
Yeah.
and they were like practically almost like whatever you give to them, they'll take.
Yeah.
So you present them the gospel, they will open their ears for it.
Yeah.
But like I was also in London and everyone already has their beliefs,
Yeah.
and so preaching there was like difficult. Like they were like, whenever I
Yeah.
try to approach someone, they just try to argue me back, things they heard online. And to some extent, I guess you could say my heart did harden towards them. It was like, all right, if you don't want it, I'm not gonna give it to you, that kind of expression. Yeah.
Sometimes it's easier to minister to people who are not living in the city.
Yeah.
That's what we see oftentimes when we're on mission trips.
Yeah.
Like, I have no problem ministering to kids in the slums, even though they've got snot and I don't know where their hands have been. Like, it's dirty. Like, their hair is like in shapes that I've never seen before. Like, it's just really like they're dirty. But there I am, like carrying them and playing around with them, and I have no problem. And then I get frustrated with kids in the city and always on their phone or whatever it
Yeah.
is. So it's like, but then the thing is, God pities both parties. You don't have to be also like in lack for you to pity that person. And I think that's the general consensus, like, oh, this person's lacking, this person is struggling with finances, and we should pity them. But then also I think people who are struggling with, say, sexual sin, or people who are struggling with other vices, they also deserve pity too. Maybe sometimes you're like, oh, why should they receive pity? That's like a first world problem, right?
Yeah.
But they also deserve God's pity too. So it's not just like a specific group of people. And maybe something to even think about is like, are we hypocrites if we only pity one group of people and not the other group?
When you first asked that, it seemed like these people would be hypocrites, or we would be hypocrites by pitying some but not the others. But at the same time, we can only focus our attention on so many things.
Yeah.
And also, I think we're created to focus on different things.
Yeah.
Some people might care more about politics, some people might care less. I think we should all still be sensitive towards it. Just maybe we won't care as much or pity some people as much as the others.
I don't really know about the hypocritical part, but I feel, you know, like I said, like when I see people begging on the streets and I don't give anything, I do build up a teeny amount of guilt, right? And I feel you can only have so much, right? And I think that's why you start holding, when the guilt starts getting high, you tend to hold back the pity. And you know, while we were on this series of Jonah, you know, I was kind of like, there was a moment where I was wondering what would Jonah's scenario look like in the modern day. And I think one story is like Jackie Pullinger.
Okay.
Not in the sense she didn't behave like Jonah, but
Right.
it's almost the same message where she went into somewhere that was
No one wanted to
no
go
one
to.
wanted to
Yeah.
go. Like not even maybe some locals, like some Hong Kongers tried,
yeah.
but it was someone from what UK? Like
Yeah, yeah.
she's British, right?
Yeah.
Someone all the way from there comes and has this heart for people. You know, that I think that is the right response. That we don't harden our hearts, we don't numb ourselves. You probably could use that if you feel guilty. You could probably use that guilt for good. But like, look at Jackie Pullinger. She put herself in there.
Yeah.
You know, and I heard the stories of what it was like in there. They were throwing like feces all over her schools and stuff. And I think even at one point she wanted to give up, but I guess the calling was just so strong, and
Yeah.
that this pity, she just had so much pity for them that she committed, and like
Yeah.
look at the change that she brought.
Yeah.
So that's what Jonah should have done. Should have
Yeah.
been like. But yeah, thanks Jonah for failing, so we know what not to do.
So the
like,
guy
I
don't
did
want
this
not to
mis-
do.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like I did miss this mistake, so you know what not
Yeah.
to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, he actually was purposely doing all of that so that we would learn, right? But yeah, going on to the Great Commission is that we are called to make disciples of all nations. So the heart of God is really to reach all people. So at the end of the day, is we are to show compassion and share Jesus to all, not a select few. Maybe like you mentioned, yeah, we're not created to, we can't, there's only so much we can do. There's only so many people that we can love. And yeah, maybe there's certain people groups that we're called to, then we honor that. But doesn't mean that like, oh, if another person comes your way, it's like, oh, get out of my way because God didn't call me to you. It's really also like, who has God put in your path as well? And how are you showing the love of God to them? Because I think if you're treating like, you know, let's say service staff really poorly, but then you're loving, let's say, you know, the youth really well, I mean, that's just discrepancy right there. You need to be standard all across the board. So whoever God puts in your path, I think, that's what we need to focus, to show compassion and share Jesus to all, and not be selective with our, I guess, our love. So. Yeah. At least, I mean, not selective of like showing love of God to people. Yeah. All right. Well, a lot of things that we learned from Jonah, but yeah, I think it's a good series and definitely a lot of things that we can apply to our lives. Next week, we're gonna be starting a series on the book of Titus. That should be really good. All right. Well, that's that for today. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you next grind.
Bye.
Bye.